Your worst customer is a startup, unfortunately.
Yeah.
They don't have money.
Exactly.
For founders, what kills them usually is the same over and over, right?
Why do they typically chase the money too early? And in your opinion, from your experience, when is the time to go find that investor?
The reason people look for money is bootstrapping is hard. There is no right or wrong answer. The only right answer is, do you want to grow? Or do you want to build a business block by block and then see later? And now you come into something else, which is what I call VC or investment dead zones.
Dead zones.
Yes. And this is extremely important. And most people are not aware. They just ask money at any time. And if you took what I call dead money comes with zero input. If you brought the wrong investor into the room, it's on you. It means you didn't check what they're investing in. So there's no excuse. If someone didn't bother to do the research, they just didn't bother. And there's nothing worse for you as a company than down. It means you didn't hit your metrics. You didn't hit what it was supposed to be. And you'll be surprised how quickly people stop answering the call, investors. Because what people also forget is that investors are only looking for exits.
Really?
They're not looking to sit in your company for the next 50 years.
That's new to me. Okay.
No.
Yeah, can you tell me more?
VC comes for an exit.
Important thing for people to remember, it's not just about getting feedback, it's about getting feedback from the right people.
Fighting is healthy if it's done in a professional and respectful manner, right? You want your investor to challenge you, and you want to challenge them. If the advice is free, it's worth what you paid for it.
Peter Thomsen is an entrepreneur, investor, and startup coach helping founders navigate the realities of building and scaling startups from both sides of the table. With experience spanning company building, venture dynamics, and storytelling, he brings a sharp, practical lens to what it actually takes to grow a business, make the right calls, and survive the inevitable challenges that come with it. In this episode, we unpack when founders should pivot, we explore first-time founder struggles, how to approach investor relationships, and the difference between building for growth versus revenue.
Thanks for having me, Carl. It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. So Peter, you and I always like to give the audience context of how we met. So Peter and I both connected. I met through Founder Connects. So shout out Ronnie, as usual. I think people on the podcast who's this Ronnie guy just connecting people and bringing you guests. We're part of the Founder Connects community, and me and you had a call. I think we met on the speed networking thing, and then we met up at a couple of events. And guys, for the people who don't know, Peter is a startup coach, but specifically focuses on fundraising over his career of 25 years. He's worked with over 900 plus companies, raised over $70 million. And what I wanted to do, and you recently just came to Dubai in the last, I think year, was it?
No, I actually been here for 12, 13 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So, okay. I don't know why I thought it was more recent than
We
that.
meet too many people on this Founder Connect.
That's the
Ron is doing way too good
true.
of a job.
That's
So there's
true.
way too much people,
That's very fair. That's very true. So that's my bad. So what I wanted to talk to you about today, Peter, is most founders, as you know, being part of the community, everyone is struggling with scaling the business, with raising funds. People have similar challenges. Different industries might, have different things. So I think with someone with your experience, it would be very valuable for people to understand the work you've done with startups and what lessons can they take away and apply to the startups that they're running right now. But before we dive into all of that, Peter, why don't you give all of us a little bit of background about yourself, and we'll take it from there.
Absolutely. So been doing, I'm one of those weird kids. So I think I was 12 years old when I got very interested in business. And I was reading business books and magazines and told my parents I want to live internationally and do work. And they were like, what's wrong with you? Right? My dad painted houses. My mom was homestaying. They're like, where does this come from? It was just always somehow in my blood, right? I started my first business when I was 18, my first property. I opened a shop. I sold computer games. This is way back in the day. Total failure. I did very good on the few things I was good at, but I didn't know anything about running a business yet. I didn't know anything about market sizing, getting the customers in the door, operating the cash flow, anything like that. But massive learning curve. Right? And what happened was I created a network of companies that I had to work with, and they saw some talent, and they started immediately calling me, can you come and help us with this? Can you consult us on that, right? Because I had a lot of experience, and now I had learning.
And at such a young age too, for like that to start happening.
Yeah. But it's something about you, not to sound like I'm high on myself, but some people saw talent in it.
Sure.
And they started consulting me. So then they would either call me to bring me in to help them with some problem they had in growth, some problem they have in their systems, something like that. And very often there would be founders coming to me like, can I bounce my idea off you to understand what would work, what wouldn't work, what's your feedback on this? And that's my passion in life, right? Talking about ideas with founders. That's why I go to these events like Founder Connects. I don't really go there to scour customers or I just I love the energy. I love hearing all the new ideas and what people are doing to do it. So then it built from there. I got more and more involved with bigger and bigger companies. I did a few IT startups myself over the years there. And I just transitioned into a role where I would typically come on board like a number two with a wide scope. And the founder is like, I'm doing this. There's all these other things in my business I don't know how to handle. Can you just manage it? Please make me a system, something right. And having done all the studies in business development, so I did, so I knew kind of automatically how to, okay, you need this 5, 6, 7, 8 roles. I will do them all. And then I will start hiring for you and putting systems in place for you until I replace myself.
Okay.
And then I'll move on to the next one, right? So that has always been my speciality, coming in and helping companies. And that's a very good 0 to 1 skill, right? You come in, a founder has a vision. He is like me when I was 18. There's a lot of things he doesn't know. If he's very smart, the best thing a founder can do is find someone who's done it, who's much better than them at those things, so they can focus on what they're doing, and they can have those people just elevate their business with no ego. Right?
Yeah.
Because for founders, what kills them usually is the same over and over, right? The ego of, I know I'm better at this and everyone else, my idea is the best. You need some ego because you need to believe in your idea. When everyone tells you no, you have to believe and you have to go for it. But don't have ego on the wrong things. If you need a guy to run your finance, get the best guy out there who schools you. Don't learn accounting, learn what the numbers mean, right? Don't necessarily learn the operations. Learn what is important for the business from operations. So now you can talk to your team and get the best out of them. Let them run it. They're better at it than you. You as a manager just need to know, what do I need to know to run a better business?
Interesting. Okay, I love that I'm so happy you brought up the ego part, because I think I'd love to start the conversation there. Now, as you said, you do as a founder need to have almost delusional belief in what you're doing, because the chances of it working out are more likely, on the statistics that it's not going to work out, than it is. So you need just that as a starting point to keep you going, through those ups and downs. I had a conversation recently with someone, and she said, if you're pushing something and it feels like it's too hard, then maybe that's not the right thing for you to be doing. And as you know from your experience, founders struggle with that. One of the biggest struggles with founders is not just the ego, is the attachment to the idea and unwillingness to pivot.
Yeah.
Right? But the question is, because this is where I always am like, I have this debate in my head. Let's say year 1, doesn't work out. Cool. But still early. Year 2 doesn't. Year 3, now you're at a decision. I'm like, okay, should I switch to something else? But what if, there's always that what if, the end of year 3 is when, everything's going to come together and you're going to take off. So if I came to you, I'm a founder, I'm having that experience, I've been running for a few years, but I'm growing but slow and I'm not getting to where I want to go. When is the right time to pivot, and what are the signs I should be looking for, whether to, drop this completely or, keep pushing through?
So this is a metric that has changed over the years. And because today we live in a society where we have so much on the internet, we have so many tools, we can be much faster on the pivot, right? We can test an idea much faster in the market than we could before. Before we had to grind through it for years to see if it would work, right? Let me start with on pivot. There is the healthy pivot and the unhealthy pivot.
Okay, interesting.
Right. So the healthy pivot is you learned enough and you see, okay, my customers are telling me that even if I add feature A, B, C on my product, they will still not buy it. It just doesn't compute for them. And they're telling you, Khaled, I will not buy your product. No matter what you do, I'm not buying it. Now you can do a healthy pivot. They say, but if you do this instead, which is you take it this 20% and you create this other feature you didn't think about, we'll buy it. That's a healthy pivot. An unhealthy pivot is you're squeezed, you're running short on cash. The customers are giving you good feedback, but it's slow. Your partners, your investors are saying, oh, you have to pivot. You pivot. Oh, every smart businessman pivots. That's an unhealthy pivot, because now you're caving to the pressure from a third party who's not in the room with you talking to your customers every day. You're not actually listening to the customer. The market would always tell you what's right or not. We can't all be the Elon Musks or Steve Jobs of the world who's just saying, I know better than you, and I'm going to build this 10, 20, 30 years vision. The kind of products most people work with, the market will let you know. And today we're getting better, and it's much easier to have that communication with the market. getting feedback online in the forums. It can be Reddit, it can be Discord, it can be on chat, it can be Facebook groups. They will let you know. If you add these 2-3 things, that would be amazing. And then you see, okay, that wasn't one guy, that was 50 guys, that was 200 guys. So if you do that, I'm happy to pay for it. That's a healthy pivot.
I'm so happy you made that distinction between, I've never heard anyone distinguish them, in that way. But there's also, I guess, just to play devil's advocate, you typically, in the best case scenario, I'm going to say, when I bring on, let's say for my business, I brought you, Peter, on as an investor, you have experience in the field, whatever. Now I'm an expert in my field, but you're an expert on the business side and like building that. So I might see something that you might not agree with, and you might see or have a suggestion of where to go that I might not agree with. And I had a conversation with a VC once upon a time, and he said, these are the kind of conversations you need to have from the beginning, because if you're not aligned on the core vision moving forward, there are tweaks you can make, obviously, along the way. You can do healthy pivots and stuff, but it's a discrepancy of needs. As a founder, I need this because I believe I need this because this is the way I know my industry is going. That's what I want to do. And you as an investor, because and rightly so, you want your return. You see that your return, like your motive or your return is going to come going a different path. So in that kind of example, who wins or who should win? Because I can argue to the investor and I can argue to the founder.
Yeah. I think you point out the right thing. This comes up, this should be handled all the way in the beginning of the journey. So getting an investor, most founders get so desperate getting the money, right? Because getting an investor, it's not, very rarely you hear a guy, spoke to one investor, he gave me the money, everything is sunshine, I just grew, and I'm $1 billion company today, and I'm in Bahamas, right? It rarely happens.
True.
And that's like 0.000 whatever percent. So, and the best VCs I ever heard speaking about it themselves, they say, we're not here to choose you. You are here to choose us. Because getting an investor is like a marriage. Divorces are ugly. And you need to have this, you need to sign off on a document before. These are the rules, these are the ground rules. Do we fit as a couple? Or do we believe we can solve all these things down the road? Because you will run into a lot of walls and a lot of challenges. But if you both came in with the right attitude, you're supposed to fight. Fighting is healthy if it's done in a professional and respectful manner, right? You want your investor to challenge you, and you want to challenge them. But if the investor can bring you proper metrics, why they think they're correct, if it's a gut feeling, I would say stick to your gut feeling.
Okay,
because if it's a good investor, they didn't technically invest in your project, they invested in you. And why they invest in you is that if your project fails, they're still partners with you, you can pivot. You can do something new because you have the right drive, right? They look for people. And I used to run into this all the time with people coming to me for advice. They would say, I have this great idea, Peter. Can we come for coffee? Can we meet? Can we do? And I said, yeah, sure, I'll come. They start with, I can't tell you my idea because if you know and I tell someone else, they might steal it. That idea is already dead, right? Talk openly, be open, talk about everything. No one is here to steal our idea. They're here to listen to it. Good idea. If I'm an investor, I own my businesses, my company, I maybe have 40 investments and 2 big companies I run myself. You really think I'm going to drop everything to open your revolutionizing car wash and stand in it myself and wash cars? No. I want to know that you're going to do that 24/7, right? And if I believe in that, and I believe if it doesn't work, Holly is such a driving force that if it doesn't work, he will pivot and he will create something else that works, right? A good example is, I remember Stephen Bartlett on one of his episodes was talking about the first investor who gave him money. He was a young kid almost, right?
Yeah, he was like 18 or something at the time.
And when the guy gave him money, he came back to him later and said, why did you give me money? Because, like he said, he almost didn't believe in his idea, right? The investor said, no, but I saw something in you. Most likely you'll fail on this one, but now we are together in it. And I believe in you and what you will be doing at some point down the road. And that investor, you remember, you will call him for the next project and you will give him favorable terms because he was a good partner to you, right? But I think the distinction is you have to look for the right investor. You can have smart money. You can have an investor who really wants to back you up. And if you took what I call dead money comes with zero input. I gave you money, send me a report now and then. If it doesn't work out, we'll start nagging you with questions, right? it's terrible to deal with. It eats all your time. It eats all your confidence. You will always fight. They will bring some consultant who tells you, do this with your business, change it, do A, B, C. And he didn't even study your industry, your field, nothing. Healthy pivot is based on healthy metrics. And if you have the right investor, he will help you by sitting you down and saying, here is our metrics, why we believe it works. And he will convince you. And you will be probably, if it's really good, and if it's right, you'll be like, wow, you're right. Let's do it. This solves everything.
Yeah. And to your point, I think there needs to be, like you said, I've heard this before, like you said, getting an investor is like getting married, but and this is where the tricky thing happens, because let's say me and you have been talking now for the last like 9 months. Okay, we're going back and forth. Peter, this is my idea. Okay, Khaled, I'm interested. We're building that relationship. We're doing the due diligence, we're crossing I's, dotting the T's, whatever. Now, with every relationship, there comes different stages, right? So for example, when you meet a girl or whatever, your first date is not the person you were on date one, is not the person that you end up getting married to, is not the person that you end up, having kids with. So it's also very difficult because I think the problems don't start it's not the beginning that the problems start. It's, down the line. So there's always, I think, maybe an element of risk, but you have to be able to, in an ideal scenario, both of you have to be open and smart to, like, I chose Peter to invest in me for a reason, and he's giving me this advice. And vice versa, you'd be like, okay, I wanted to work with Khaled. He's an expert in this field for this specific reason. I should also listen to him. So there's that fine balance, or a dance. And to your point about dead money, I agree. I'm not for dead money, at all. But one thing I also think about, I think founders look for money way too fast. I think they're like, I have to get investment. There's no way I can bootstrap this and refine it and polish it and do everything perfectly. So then when I do want an investor, it's spotless, and it's much more likely that they'll be willing to invest and want to come along this journey. Because I just hear, from lots of founders, I'm very grateful that I'm fully bootstrapped, but like, I know that, but it's just me too. So I understand it's not a fair comparison, either. So I think that's a big problem that founders have. So my question to you would be, why do they typically chase the money too early? And in your opinion, from your experience, when is the time to go find that investor? What stage do you need to be at? Not in terms of maybe revenue, but maybe as a person, as a company. What are your thoughts?
So to number one, the reason people look for money is bootstrapping is hard, right? That is the easiest answer to it. It's hard. You don't have money. If you're still living in your parents' apartment, you don't need to pay for food. You can afford it. You can go for it. You should try it. Try being a founder if you have it in you as early as possible in life, because you can afford to fix your mistakes. They will not follow you. It's harder when you're 60 years old.
Of course.
You have children, grandchildren, you have the house to pay, you're about to retire. Now it's harder to bootstrap, right? For the second part, there is the right time to get money depends on the project and the person and the market they're in. So there's many factors to this. People look for money too early just because they think it makes their life easier. You have to take many steps back and look at what you want to do. One of the first things I ask someone when they sit down with me, I meet people at these events, we go for a coffee. They say, let me get your input on my project, right? So one of the first things I ask them is like, what do you want to do with your project? Where are you going? And they're like, what do you mean? I said, are you trying to build a scalable company that you can take investments to grow, to exit? Because what people also forget is that investors are only looking for exits.
Really?
They're not looking to sit in your company for the next 50 years.
That's new to me. Okay.
No.
Yeah, can you tell me more,
a VC comes for an exit. They have a time frame. Let's say a VC with a fund of $20 million, right? They will say, I will take this $20 million. First, I will take 6 million. This 6 million, I will spread on 20 companies. The rest of the 14 million, I'm going to sit on it. These 20 companies, they start working. 10 of them has potential. 8 has potential. Now they will take another 6 million and invest in a Series A, but only in those 10 or 8. Now they will keep the rest of the money for the next round for only 2. Because their goal with that fund of 20 million is that in a time frame of 6, 8, 10 years is to give a certain ROI to the investors of the fund, to the LPs, right? And that needs to be high. And this is what people get wrong when they have a certain investment size about, let's say you raised $2 million for your project. you're lacking 100,000. You raised 1.9 out of 2. You go to a VC, you say, I'll give you 100,000. For him, it's like, are you joking? You don't get why he doesn't want to invest, because I have all these investors, my project is great. You didn't give him enough piece of the pie. So when you come to the end round, you need to raise more money. For him, it's like, well, I did a 5x return on my money. You're like, it's amazing. No, they're only looking to invest in the few companies all the way that goes far enough. They need a fixed 50x, right? They need 100x. And they need the ticket to be big enough so that that investment can carry the fund. They are willing to lose it or go to the moon. They only need 1 to succeed, 2, 3 to flat,
and that will make up for all of them.
And the rest will probably lose.
Yeah.
And that's their bet. They don't want 20 companies who just does okay. But founders think that. I brought you a great deal. You'll double your money. And then they don't understand when they invest in the stock market in something they understand, or bonds, or like a secure real estate where they get 8% a year. And everyone's like, hey, come with me, I'll double it. No, if you're a billionaire at 8%, you know exactly what you're making with zero risk, right?
Yeah, true.
With me, there's 100% risk. I might make it, but I might get hit by a bus tomorrow morning.
True.
Right?
True.
And to roll a little bit back to that when choosing that investor, so investors does due diligence on you. You agree to the deal, they send you a term sheet, and they say, we'll give you this money, but we have to check your papers, we have to interview your team, you have to check your IP, your tech, you have to talk to your customers before we give it to you. We're giving it to you, but pause everything until. You have to due diligence your investor. And this is before signing. First of all, if you brought the wrong investor into the room, it's on you. It means you didn't check what they're investing in. You found someone, and they're like, oh, these are really good. I heard they have a big name. They're not even good in your industry, in your sector. It's a completely wrong investor for you, right? But people are so scared of narrowing the market that I just need money.
That's very true.
So they don't dare going there, right? But you need to grow some hair on your chest and just stand through the wind. But there's another thing I want to touch on with this, because it's such a complicated subject.
Of course it is. Yeah.
When you said, what's the right time to take money? There is no right or wrong answer. The only right answer is coming back to, like I said, when I sit down with people, I said, do you want to grow, or do you want to build a business block by block and then see later? Because your vision is almost the same, but if you want to build a growth company for massive growth and exit, the steps you're taking to get there are different than the steps you're taking to build block by block a good business for sale, where you have a good salary, you have a team who's salaried, and you made a good business that makes money. Because that decides when to take money, if you should take money. If you want to grow, you pretty much have to take money. But you have to take the right type of money at the right time. And now you come into something else, which is what I call VC or investment dead zones.
Dead zones.
Yes. And this is extremely important. And most people are not aware. They just ask money at any time, right? So I meet people all the time who say, I think if I bootstrap another 6 weeks, I'll just go live. And I look at their project and I say, I go live, I put it in the market. I don't have money to go to market. I'll just put it live and I'll get a little bit of traction, some users, and then I'll raise money. I'm like, you just shot yourself in the foot. If you go live, you are in a dead zone. Now it's all about the metrics. I can take money from an angel on the idea. He wants to give me money to prove my MVP, to get a few customer feedback, maybe do a pilot. If I said, well, I don't want your money yet because I want to be worth more, I switch on the on switch. His mindset changes. The angel probably doesn't want to come in. He said, here's some seed investors. They will look at you and say, well, you're gaining 2 customers a week. You're a growth company. You need to hit 40, 50, 60 customers a week as a SaaS, for example, and you're getting 2. Yeah, but my idea is great. And you see no, you're dead to them until you hit that growth. Now you put yourself in a bad bracket, right? How do I grow without money? And it's too late. And then you grow, you take the next money, and you hit a new dead zone, right? So there is this dead zones between VCs where you have to grow. And if you don't hit your metrics there, you can't get more money. And if you hit enough funding rounds, you might hit a down round if you don't hit your metrics, which turns into the last thing. If you take money at the right point, you start growing, then you grow much faster than you thought. Then someone comes and throws a truckload of money on you. And you just think, my God, I needed 2 million. This guy's giving me 10. Amazing. I'm going to take it. I'm like, hold your horses. What do you need 10 million for? What's your plan?
And what's the responsibility of taking that much, a 5 times bigger round than that? Because I'm going to expect way bigger results from giving you 10 rather than 2, right?
If I was growing 40% month over month, whatever, suddenly I have to grow 100% month over month. And if I don't hit it, I failed. My next round is going down the drain. A great example on this on a large scale is Revolut. Revolut, as a digital bank in Europe, the owner just moved here to Dubai. Massive success story, right? But they had their ups and downs. They had, a few years ago, they raised a lot of money, and then they were like, we need to raise a big bucket. They got SoftBank, which is one of the largest, most aggressive investors in the world, right? And they were like, I think they were, I don't remember the numbers, but let's say they were raising at 12 million, 15 million. SoftBank said, no, I'm going to give you this much money at 33 billion. And they were like, that's more than double what they were supposed to raise money at. Then the whole fintech market globally had like a funding winter, like a fintech winter almost in funding. It was very hard times for a few years. They needed more money. They can't raise money now because now their valuation will go down if they raise money. And they were struggling for a year. Not that Revolut was struggling, but to raise the money, you're struggling metrically wise. What do you do, right? The growth was amazing, but not to support that valuation. So in the end, they did something very interesting. They raised a round internally on some, where they just wrote that, this is the internal valuation we used. So we worked more. And then with the growth they had in the back end, this kind of got them out of this rut, right? But most people don't have that luxury. And there's nothing worse for you as a company than a down round.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
It means you didn't hit your metrics. You didn't hit what it was supposed to be. And you'll be surprised how quickly people stop answering the call, investors.
Yeah, like I gave you the money. It's your problem now.
Back to the marriage, right? You think, at least your wife, you go home, she's there. She doesn't have anywhere to go. So you still have to fight about it if you have a problem. And the investor just, well, I don't live with you and I can just shut off the phone. And you'd call, you say, yeah, but the house is on fire. Help me. Click. Sorry. It's a you problem. Call us again if you succeed. And it's a shock, especially for most first-timers, right? They're like, what are you doing? And that's why you need to pick your investors. And by chasing the money, most people just chase any money, right?
So I want to thank you for that's such useful information. First of all, on all those different verticals of when to raise the money, when's the right time, the down rounds, valuations, why do you need the money? I want to come back all the way to where we started that part with why do you need the money, right? Now you've built businesses, I'm building a business. What I think this is the challenge, because if you're, especially as a first time founder, I think second time you know what to do. So like yeah, maybe. But my thing is, I'm like, it took me years of just doing this and learning and going through it. Like if you asked me when I started this in like 2022, 2023, like, Khaled, what's your vision with this? I'm like, I have no idea. I have no fucking idea. I just started this and I found something that people are like, okay, this guy's good. We want to, we're willing to bring him on to like launch our podcast and do this stuff for us. Now, okay, it's very different. So if I had that conversation with you, if I came to you 2 years ago, I wouldn't be able to answer that question for you. So that's why I think for first-time founders, it's really hard to have a clear vision of where you want to go in the early stages, because you've kind of found a problem. You're like, not necessarily. Maybe it's just I think this is a problem, and I've built this thing because I think there's a problem here. Whether the market wants it or doesn't that's a different story. So I've got this thing. Maybe I've had a little bit of success, but I don't know where this is going to lead to. I'm just so happy that I'm like, oh my God, I built something and then people are willing to pay, to use it. So it's very hard for me to have that clarity of vision at such an early stage for me to even answer that very relevant and simple question of which way should I go. So I want to just get onto that first before we dive into the rest. So what are your thoughts around that? Because you've experienced it not only as building a business, but I'm sure as many of the conversations you have with startup founders, they probably are feeling those things too.
So a good thing you point out here, there's nothing wrong with just starting. You start, you don't have a vision yet, but you have an idea what you're doing and you know your customers and you're building a business. At this point, you're not fundable, but you're not doing anything wrong. and you're learning a lot. You're getting customer feedback.
That's a great point.
So what you did was right for you at the time. If you tomorrow, let's talk about your business, right?
Sure.
So what exactly do? You support people in setting up podcasts and operating them and running them and
Yes.
everything around it, right?
Yes.
So you created a business out of something I believe was your passion.
It was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is a great starting point, because at least you enjoy what you do, right? And you ended up making some money on what you do. So it doesn't have to become a big fundable business. You're doing what you enjoy. But at some point, if it picks up, you have to start looking at, can I create a tool? Can I create a SaaS tool, a setup, an online thing like Riverside that would help all my clients to do it? Should I live off affiliate money from this? How should I do it, right? If you then, let's say you said in the end, I'm getting such traction. You're in the right space because creator economy is booming. Right. I had an interesting conversation with this, like on the founder of the digital bank and with Yap. And he's like, there's only one industry that is booming in the world where you can get money, is fintech. I looked at him and said, well, the creator economy is bigger.
It is.
In money than the fintech business. Even though fintech is massive, creator economy is actually bigger, right? And it's growing faster, right? So you're in a great space. Maybe tomorrow you say, well, I have so many customers. I have an idea where I want to build out a bigger studio, where I have 10 podcast studios and where I can work closely with creators on their career. And now you're going to need funds. Now you need to set a vision for what that means. You need to build a business plan. Then you can go and talk to an investor and say, the advantage with that is you worked in the industry. You can say, this is what I did. I worked in podcasting. I helped all these clients. I grew them from here to here. This is with all these learnings, I'm going to go and do this, because I'm getting that feedback that would work. Now you're already at a great starting point, right? Now you can go and raise funds. Previously, no, you should not even look into it. You should bootstrap yourself, buy a microphone, start with an iPhone. So I started my own podcast, right? That's why we started discussing.
We're going to touch on to that in a sec,
I bought some cameras, but my middle camera is an iPhone because I don't use it much, but it works. And you see sometimes people with 2 simple microphones, like this clip-on microphones and 2 iPhones, they can do a podcast, right? When they want to make it into a business, this is where someone like you comes in. You say, well, I studied how this works. I know the metrics. I can build you a business package, right? Right now, you're probably not at a scalable version of that because you don't have the services and tools set around it that you can sell, but it might come. But it has to come also if it's something that you want to be doing.
Very good point.
Right.
Exactly.
You at some point say, well, I studied it, and if I do these steps, this will work massively well. Then either you work it out yourself, you have a great network through our mutual friend from Founder Connects, Ronnie, and the great people there. You have someone like me. Then you talk to people, what do I do? And the point of that is talk to as many people as possible.
100%.
You will get people who's negative, who's positive, who gives you amazing feedback, who tells you a lot of pitfalls. They will give you a lot of free advice. And they don't really want anything for it. And that's the beauty of Dubai, right? Here, we're all willing to have that cup of coffee and discuss and be open with each other. You go to Europe, it's completely opposite.
Yeah, very different.
I don't have time for you.
Yeah.
What's your idea? And so that's why people have this built-in fear. First, they can't get through the door, and secondly, they have a built-in fear of telling them what they're supposed to be doing, right?
And to your point, so first of all, I think you made a very important distinction, and and using my business as an example is great in the sense of it's not like in terms of growing and scaling, it also has to be something you want to do as the entrepreneur, right? You need, like, if I want to build go from a solopreneur to an entrepreneur, there's a whole different learning curve, mindset, a vision that I need to have to fit into that. And then to your point is finding the people, the resources to help scale that and get it, to that next stage. And I think that's a very important point you made, because I think people think I need to, in this solopreneur, entrepreneur space, it has like, I have to go big and I have to do this and I have to get funded. I have to hire people. I have to without taking a step back and really, it's a personal thing, asking themselves like, what do I want? Is this what fits with me?
What is right for you?
Thank you very much. What is right for you? So I'm so happy that, and what you said, like at the time you weren't, you were not fundable, and that's also something that founders need to keep in mind. Maybe you're not at a stage right now where you are even fundable, or should look for funding, or an investor could come in. And I like how you said, if coming back earlier, like if an angel comes in just on your idea, you have a lot maybe more leeway, or because it's belief in you and the idea. But if you start going for like Series A and bigger, that's when have a lot more questions, a lot more responsibilities, and so on. So I'm happy we addressed that issue. Now coming on to models, business models. I think this is also a very important thing for founders, and really dictates a lot of what we talked about today in terms of which direction, whatever. Now, something I've never understood personally, this is a personal thing, is obviously I've watched Shark Tank for years, and the biggest lessons I took away from it is you have a clear vision, know your market, and you need proof, some sales, some revenue, right? But then you look at all these massive companies, the Ubers, the Airbnbs, whatever. It was never built on revenue. It was purely built on growth. We can be, somehow you're losing money, but I'm becoming more valuable. And that, to me, in my mind, from what I've watched and learned and read, I'm like, how does that work? So I think what would be useful to people is describing those two different distinctions of a growth model and like a revenue model. What are the differences? How do they each work? And because I think people need to understand, maybe they don't know which one they're in yet or which one they should go to. So would love to hear that from you.
So let's start with Uber, right? So when they were a success growth story, I see a lot of pitch decks during a year. And it's funny. It's like suddenly I would get every single pitch deck would say, we are the Uber of.
Yeah.
We're the Uber of foods. We're the Uber of podcasts. We're the Uber of
That's so true.
real estate.
That's
we're the
so
Uber
true.
of everything, right? Because they were thrown money at. So, but he was shifting an industry. He was disrupting the business model of an industry, right? And the founder there managed to convince a lot of investors that this is ripe for disruption. Disruption is great. You can go into an industry as solopreneur, small entrepreneur, SME, whatever, and do good business in an established industry, which is great because you know all the metrics, you can find all the data, and you can be better than the other guy. And that can be a perfect growth company. Last week, I was listening to a podcast with an entrepreneur in the US who he installs garage doors. He's a billionaire. He has billions, and he just decided early in his career, I'm going to do only garage doors. Been doing it for 20 years. Billionaire. He never pivoted or did anything else. That's what he's doing. If I went to someone today and say, I'm going to be the Uber of garage doors, I will not get any money. They won't believe me, right? That was not a disruption. He built a traditional industry. You can disrupt industries. Taxi industry was like, there was enough metrics that people like, this makes sense. Because I come from a small town in Norway. If you go out in the weekend to a restaurant or to a bar at night, and then you want to go home, everything closed at 3, what do you think the taxi line looks like?
Yes, probably.
And everyone's house is 8-10 kilometers away. That taxi takes a while, and you have to wait at the station, right? There is nothing. And you stand in that queue for 2 hours in the freezing middle of the night. It's terrible.
Also that, yeah.
And now I click on the button, I see where the car is, it's coming. That was due for disruptions. Some industries are disrupted once in a while. And if you can be the disruptor, great. It doesn't mean you'll succeed, right? How many social networks did you have before Facebook?
Yeah, we had like the High Five, we had MySpace, we had like all of those.
And if you're young enough, you haven't even heard of, you didn't even know that they ever existed. Before Google, you had Yahoo was the king of the hill.
It was true.
Right? My first browser that I was really big was something called Alta Vista. And people are like, what are you talking about? Right? When Google came out, my friends started using Google. I was like, what is this nonsense? No, Alta Vista is my go-to browser. And then I tested, and they disrupted something. They did something different, right? So much harder to explain the business model, but you can explain disruption. If they believe in the disruption, they can help you build the business model in it. Any other business you're in, you need to have been able to do enough research and build a business model that the investor believes in. This does not mean that by the time you go live, you don't change it. Because by the time you go live, you have more information. You tested with customers. You
get feedback.
You have feedback. Now, this is a small internal pivot. You're not pivoting the company. You're just doing tweaks to your business model, right? But you have to work out the business model that you believe works. And I've seen the easier the money is available in the market, unfortunately, the lazier founders are. I see it all the time. So 5 years ago, 6 years ago, if you wanted to raise money in the fintech space or Web3 space, they would just throw money at you. Just any deck coming in the door. I open the deck and I'm looking, I'm like, this is complete garble. This doesn't make sense. It will never work. The business model is, I don't know who wrote it. It's like, they're going to transact through our Web3 coin with our loyalty program. And for every transaction, I will charge them 25%, but they'll be so happy. I'm like, why would I give you 25% of me buying something in the supermarket? I can go to the supermarket and pay 0%. Because the processor behind it eats the cost of me using my MasterCard. So I don't need to pay anything. If I have 100 dirhams to buy with, I spend 100 dirhams. That's it, right? So you have to understand your business model and your metrics. And if you're not able to build it, you shouldn't talk to an investor yet. So one of the things I teach, if I go to an event, sometimes I'm asked to speak at events to just talk about how to build a pitch deck and how to pitch in general, right? And what surprises a lot of founders is you need to know your pitch deck and your vision and the business model well enough that if an investor, third slide, does this, he stops you. This is like being on who's got Britain Got Talent or something.
Yeah.
And they're like, they stop you. And you panic, right? They want to ask you a question. People who are not prepared, they're like, let me just get through my deck. I might answer it. Worst thing you can do. If someone stops you to ask you a question, you already made it because they're interested. They want to know. Now, if you don't know your numbers by heart, your business model, you can just answer like this. You have nothing to do in that room. And this is something I try to coach people that you need to know your story. You need to know your model. You need to done enough research about the market that you can answer any question in an elevator that he might ask on the way up, right?
Yeah.
The elevator pitch is a term that's used so much that people don't really believe in it anymore. But this is what I like at Founder Connects. One of the reasons I keep coming, I love listening to the 1 minute pitches.
The spotlights,
right?
Yeah.
And they don't really talk much about their business models because it's hard to get it in there. But they need to still be enticing. They need to catch you, right? And it's very hard. It's very hard to catch people in the minute.
It is, and you know what? I'm so happy you brought that up because I love our community, guys. I love you all, and everyone's doing some great things. But I've attended these and listened to a lot of the spotlights. One of the biggest issues that I've noticed that people have is they don't know how to communicate their story in a way that's like whether it's relevant to me or not. But I should understand fully by the end what you're talking about. And on your point about pitch decks, so. When I had that VC on the podcast, we were talking about pitch decks and everyone gets, even in our community, everyone gets very hung up on pitch decks. Khaled, sometimes we invest in someone, we haven't, obviously, this is not to discount the importance of the pitch deck, guys. I want this to be very clear. And I'm sure Peter would agree, but sometimes it's just, we be having a conversation like this. I've conveyed my story very well. You see opportunity in what I'm doing. That's sometimes how people get fun. And then the pitch deck is the physical representation of what, everything behind the story, the numbers, and all that stuff. But people discount the first part way too much. That's a very, very big problem or common problem I see with a lot of founders, which is why 7 months ago, I hired a communication coach to ensure that I can practice and refine how I'm positioning myself, how I'm telling my story, because it's not just about the story. I've learned one of my biggest probably mistakes I've made over the years with like what I do is positioning, because I do so many different things. And then my coach was like, what? But it's not all pointing back to, something specific. Like Khaled is the question mark.
Yeah.
Who is that? What is it?
Yeah.
For example, in your case, Peter is the startup coach. Like for me already, from LinkedIn and from our conversation, I know that's exactly what he is and how that's what you want to position. So story, positioning, narrative, these are such important things. And from your experience, where in those areas are founders really lacking and what work do they need to do there?
Storytelling. It all comes down to storytelling, because I can tell a story with the pitch deck or without it. So to demystify the pitch deck, right? What a pitch deck starts out, if you go to business school, you learn how to build a business plan for your company. and it's a document that lives. You have to keep updating it. It's the most boring exercise ever, and everybody hates it. Oh, I have to keep looking at the market. I have to write about my competitors. I have to write down how my business model works. It's so boring. I want to build my product. A pitch deck is a very short version of your business plan. They are the same document in different formats. And you have to be, if you're excited about your business, if you're excited about the pitch deck, you should be able to build a business plan you're excited about, right? It's a more boring document, and it might be 80 slides, 100 slides with information. You need to have done that work, 100 slides, boil that down to 12, 10, 6 slides, and it still needs to tell the same story. Now, if it tells the same story, and the second thing I teach people is, first, I wouldn't learn about the founder, right? So if I was coaching you, I would learn about what drives you, what's your real motivation to what you're doing, and then we would adapt your pitch to your story. Mm-hmm. If it's your story, and you can tell me about a problem, something that happened to you, as an investor, I believe you. And if I inherently, after 2 sentences, understand your story, Khaled's story, and I understand what the product, which problem you're solving the product, I don't need to see the rest. Yeah, you still have to send it to me. I'll give it to an associate who might look through it, who will ask some questions, give data room, whatever. It's about that first connection, right? And this is where a simple trick that I always tell people, which most people don't know how to do. Most people open the pitch where they say, "Hi, I'm Peter. I'm the CEO of a company called Podcast 101, and we are here to revolutionize podcasting." But what did I tell you? Nothing. He's in some sort of podcasting space. He's going to do something. I might already be on my phone, looking at scrolling to Instagram, TikTok, texting my associate for the next pitch, something, right? You have to open with, come up with a value statement that is a bit shocking. Yeah. That's your opener.
Yes.
And I teach people, no matter where you are, start with that. So if a guy in an elevator at some event asks you, "So Khaled, what do you do?" Don't start with, "I'm Khaled, I do podcast." Start with something like, "Did you know that podcast is the fastest growing medium, and it's the fastest growing revenue space in the creative space in the world, which is also the biggest space of..." Wait, what? No, I didn't know that. Tell me more, Khaled. So what do you do? No, I run the podcast, and this is my passion, and I ran into this, and I see there's all this opportunity, and bring the excitement. I'm already hooked. I want the elevator to be longer, right?
Yeah. That's how I was going to put it.
Or by going out, I'll be like, "Listen, let's share LinkedIn, let's share a number, let's share something. I need to talk more to you." If you open the dry one, you're just another guy, right?
So Peter, one of them, as we were discussing, one of the biggest issues is communication, right? For founders, and how to tell your story, right? And how you said the pitch deck is the summary of the business plan and so on. And you were mentioning at one of the events that you have to treat every audience like you're speaking to your investors, and that's the energy and the passion that you have to come with for that. So could you tell us a little bit more about why is it so important to always approach it with that rather than just
I will give a use case, right? So one of the Founder Connects we went to, they have the 1-minute pitches. And one of the persons at the event, the pitch was a bit flat, a little bit uninspired. I didn't feel it. And the person actually came up to my table after the pitch, and we started talking. And then we discussed a little bit, and I'm not going to be rude at an event like that, but we're discussing. And then the person said, "Yeah, but you have to understand, Peter, this is not my investors. I don't consider this my customer, my audience. So I'm just going to say it." And I said, "That's where you get it completely wrong. You have to go up on that stage, and you have to imagine that this is your customers. It doesn't matter who's listening. If you're pitching, you have to be excited about what you talk about." And then we started talking about the product, and the person was engaging and energetic and super excited about the product because now they were talking about it, but I had to drag it out of them. So we had that conversation. I said, "Your job is next time to go on stage and give it to us with that energy. It doesn't matter who's in the room, because someone in the room, their dad might be an investor, their uncle might be an investor.
Great point.
They might have a customer who's like, I need to send this person to that person because that's the best connection and they're amazing." If now the way it was pitched, it's just No one remembers, right? And then you had, on the same event, I think we had the gentleman, what's his name, the swimmer.
Faris.
Faris.
Yeah, who's awesome. Shout out Faris, man.
Yes, he's amazing. Right?
Yeah.
And his pitching skills is some of the best I've seen in my life. And I've seen a lot of pitches. And we had a funny incident on the first time I met him at an event, some events ago. He did his pitch. I was like, that was amazing. That was so smooth and solid. And then another gentleman was talking about his startup, but he struggled getting the story out. And then Faris just looked at me and said, guys, can I pitch his product? And he just launched into like a 20-second amazing pitch about the other guy's product. And I said, this is what you need to do, right? And it takes practice. But you have to get down to the energy. But the most important part you can do is you have to find your story. And this is something I coach. Most people, everyone can go online. Here's the 10 slides to include in your deck. You have to open with, pitch competition, open with, hi, I'm Peter. I run a podcast company. My job is to distribute, to disturb podcasting. I'm already lost, right? I'm like, I don't care anymore. And we have this short attention span.
Yeah.
So you have to know your story. And my advice is always open with a statement, which is shocking. And that statement should be based on something you found out about your industry that is not common knowledge, but that is surprising, right? So I will switch industry completely. One of the companies I helped in this country, it's a corporate from Paris. They used to run payroll cards for labor workers, construction workers and so on. So in UAE, if you have lower salary, the banks doesn't really want to give you full service. So you have companies giving cards and money transfer service and so on, right? And it's a very on paper, black and white, everyone in the industry. I don't know exactly how it works. So I went to an event and someone asked about that. I just opened with, okay, did you know out of 5 million low-income workers in this country, did you know that 100% of them owns a smartphone? And the whole room did like, what? Are you serious? No, we didn't know that. Now I piqued their attention. I took a boring topic, but I piqued their attention. Now I'm going to explain the product and what's their problem, how I will monetize it, what product I will give and monetize it, right? But we discussed something earlier, like you said, like I said, the business plan. It opens with something like you did. You had a passion, but at some point, typically you discover a problem. You have to be able to define the problem. You can't build a solution unless you know which problem you're solving.
Great point. Yeah, very
Some
true.
people just, I built this amazing mousetrap. Well, there's 50 of the mousetrap. What does it do? No, but it catches the mouse. Yeah, they all do that, right? What is the actual problem? Where are you? I want to do it on the top 10 floors of residential buildings in Dubai. Well, they don't have mouse, so you already missed the target here, right?
Yeah.
Stupid example, but you have to find a problem. And typically in a solopreneur space, you can find a problem by something you're dealing with every day. This tool doesn't do what I want it to do, and I'm struggling with this. Now you can go out and talk to people and forums, you can go to events. And they're like, wow, if you give me that, it would be amazing, right? Now you identify the problem, you can make a solution for it.
Yeah.
If the solution comes before the problem, there's probably not a problem.
That's a very good thing to remember.
Yeah.
And
then no one will care. No one will buy it.
Yeah, true. And to your point, something you said in not only in the story aspect, but coming a little bit back to an earlier part of the conversation where we were talking about growth models and different types of business plans and so on. I think one of the issues that people have is they don't know what their next step should be, right? And you mentioned that research is the first step, and as we said, it has to be a consistent evolution throughout the process. But when you're a founder and you're just like in this world of like uncertainty and so on, it's really hard to think with clarity and stuff. And that's why getting an advisor, someone who's relevant to your field, would make sense. You need to also understand that or something to take into account is a lot of founders I believe have imposter syndrome, because
everyone,
because you're launching in a space that you don't know if it's going to work out. You have just stumbled on this problem, so maybe you're not an expert in this space, but you've identified a problem. But then people are going to look at you. Okay, there's this problem. This guy is fixing this, but who is this guy behind that? So there's also that element that comes with it. which brings me on to the concept of value and founders. Now, you've launched businesses, even when I started mine. At the beginning, you will probably do a lot more for a lot less money because you got to start. You got to get those case studies. You got to do that, right? And you also will take anyone at the beginning, because it's just more feedback, positive, cool. Then you're going to get to a stage at some point in your journey, as I did, that you have to identify, who do I want to work with?
Yep.
What industry do I want? For example, is it B2C? Is it B2B? Because I had a conversation recently with someone who has a startup, and they were looking, to the podcast and stuff. And he's like, yeah, your prices are not startup friendly. I'm like, yeah, that's why I don't work with startups. Because I learned through my experience, I'm like, it's pure numbers. My time is my time. I can invest 1 hour here and get 100 dirhams, for example. And I can get, with that same hour, invest it in this area, and I can get 2,000. What's the smart thing to do when it comes to investing that? But also, as a founder, you need money and you want to build a business. So there's a fine line between knowing your value, holding like your ground, and being comfortable with walking away, kind of like, take it or leave it. Now, from my conversations I've had with my father, I think I've been almost too willing to walk away, which is usually it's the other problem. But for me, I'm like, yeah, okay, I don't want to waste my energy into if I have to invest so much, just to get this. Already, I'm like, this is not, I can see where this is going to go as we, start. Sorry, it's a long monologue, but it's just, there's so many factors into that, intertwined in the founder value and when to walk away and stuff that a lot of people probably struggle with.
Yeah, but I think, for example, your journey, the little we have discussed just today, I'm learning a lot, right?
Yeah.
Which is what I love. That's why I love working with startups. You touched on an extremely important point. Your worst customer is a startup. Unfortunately, they don't have money.
Exactly. And in what I do in my space, I'm like, startups, especially now, you need the exposure and the brand building as much as possible, but you don't have the resources to invest in that because number one, it's longer term play. Maybe you're building a product, you have to put that into development or marketing or sales. So it's not high on your priorities list, either, which I completely understand and respect. But yeah, sorry, please continue.
No, it's it is funny because, like we just said, it's the worst customer. In my use case, right? So I know the value of, after I've done it with so many companies, raised funds. Last 15 years of my career has been a lot of fundraising for companies. We always had a lot of pitch decks and some raising, but the last 15 years has compounded to bigger numbers. And you just... This you have to cut out. Small brain freeze.
No, by the way, I leave everything in because this is natural and it's part of the conversation. So don't worry, we're keeping this in. Let people get some water and he's going to come back to us in a sec.
Oh, my brain does that sometimes. It jumps in two different directions at the same time.
Which is fair. You've seen mine today. It's all over the place. Yeah.
So where were we at? Refresh me, Khaled.
On the value of a founder and when is it time to walk away and knowing your value and
so your journey was a good example, right?
Yeah.
The way you started, it's an organic journey.
Yes.
Like you said, you didn't know where you want to go yet.
No.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
Now you should take in the customer because you're testing. This guy's willing to pay me 100 dirhams. This guy's willing to pay me 1,000. This guy 200, whatever. You can figure it out, right? At some point you solidified. You realize this is the business I want to be doing. Now you have to get real about it. You don't know your vision yet. You just know I want to treat it more formally as a business. Now you have to start looking at the customers. I can help my friends and small customers, but I will never be able to make enough money. Because in the end, you're going to realize, I need to make this much money, but on the hour of the week, I will only make this much because of the way I'm pricing myself. Now you're talking to the wrong customers. Your position is wrong. You're talking to the wrong customers and your pricing is wrong, right? Your product offering isn't correct yet. You have to work on that. Now it becomes a question of when do you walk away from customers? And the earlier the better, unless that customer brings you extreme value in the feedback loop. Those customers are worth serving for free.
True.
But most others, the less money your customer have, the more time they will eat, right? So it's the same in my coaching business. So I deal with other coaches, people who've done this before, and we discuss the offerings. Apparently the dead zone, like Alex Hormozzi says the same. He's like the dead zone for certain these kind of packages. Either you have to go very cheap, mass, or you have to go very high. If you're in the middle, you die. You can reach a few million a year. You'll do it okay business, but you can never grow. And typically you will go down up because it starts eating all your time. Serving mass market, if I'm going to do something for $10 a customer, suddenly I need 1,500 customers a month, right? That's a lot for a startup. Like in your podcast, that's not feasible.
Yeah, of course not.
How would you do 1,500 recordings?
I couldn't. No, I can't do that.
If you go high ticket, you might need one customer a month, and you can give him everything he needs.
Yeah.
The hard part with that, and I'm struggling with the same because I love working with startups. I love that part of the journey, and I love working with the founders. For me, it's better to have the coffee and give the advice for free than to spend enough time trying to sell them on my high ticket offer. I know the value of my high ticket offer because I know the return of the investment. But if the guy doesn't have the money, I can keep knocking on that door. He just doesn't have the money. Now I have a choice, either give him everything for free, but that's costing too much of my time, right? Because when I engage 100% with a customer, for me, that might be all my hours in the next month. I need to get paid for that. I can't charge a very small ticket because it'll eat all my time. And the interesting thing is, and when you land the right guy on the high ticket, he looks, he's like, okay, this is $20,000. I understand the value you're bringing me. Signed. Money is transferred. A guy on $500, $200, he will text you, he will email you, can we have coffee 4 times, 1,000 questions. And in the end, you've signed him for $300. And then after that, there's 4,000 questions. There's something is wrong. I didn't get the results. What I do. And he's just bleeding you out on your time, right? That customer you have to say no to, right? And that comes back to, this is if you're dealing with customer. You can build products like a SaaS product. You can build it. You have to include customer in the feedback loop early, but these are not paying customers.
Yeah, exactly.
Give the product away for free.
Yeah.
Use online forums, go to events, talk about it, let people test it. I just had a guy who built a great AI tool in the Arabic language space. Amazing tool. And he was working on some pilot use cases, but then he's like, no, I'm just going to put it live. Then he put it live. He sent an invite to a lot of his friends. The tool is amazing. Honestly, I tested it. It's like one of the better use cases I've seen in that particular niche he's in. He's in a legal niche. The challenge with that is he now sent it to his friends and he hoped people will pick it up. And I'm like, these people don't have time to play with your tool because it's not a proven entity in your space yet.
True.
So these customers, and he was like, yeah, Peter, only 2 guys tried it this week, but I sent it to 100. And I admitted, I didn't even have time to test it this week because I was busy, right? So I said, if you had focused on your pilots, you can go and invest some money and do a pilot project with a legal company, with a government entity, and you can connect, you can serve them. They will put 2 associates that you work super close with, and they run that through your stuff for 2 months. First of all, you're getting feedback. You're testing your system. So now when you go out to more clients, it's already a known thing, right? So every company, every idea you work on has a different starting journey. And this comes back to the funding. He put himself in the VC dead space. He's like, no, I turn on the live switch. I'm like, now you have a problem. Because now you don't have uptake in users. I actually told him, I've just turned it back off and say, I didn't go live.
Yeah.
I'm still working pilot.
Yeah.
Because as a pilot, I can raise money. If you struggle with getting customers, you need to get known somehow first. You might need money. You might need to do some partnership. Do that first. If I just put it live, the growth is whatever it is, right? Another gentleman on one of the events we go to, he builds amazing apps, but he puts them, he's great at marketing, he's great at everything, he does everything. But by putting every product live, it means now it's doomed by its own growth.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Because it has to live up to that, right?
Yeah.
Did it work? Did it not?
Yeah. And then you can put them live and you can hope there is some growth. But one cosmetic in here and there is not growth. That's not worth spending your time on, right?
Yeah.
So that would, and it's very interesting because one of the products he has built in an AI bot, chatbot space, amazing tool. Like I see so many pitches, I heard so many ideas, and most I'm like, yeah, no, been there, done that, will never work. Sometimes you're just like, wow, that's a good angle, right? And yesterday, I was meeting with someone from the recruitment space who'd done something in AI. And the last month, they considered a pivot because of something that came out, the Claude bot that came out based on Claude in the last month. There was this revelation how they can build basically human employees. And the last 10 days, I heard 15 projects like that. But most are a single guy in his bedroom. He's like, I'm going to build this thing, and it's amazing, right? But he's just building a thing that helps himself out a little bit. They were like, wow, if we take all our experience and we build this service in the recruitment space based on all their decades of experience in recruitment, they combine it with that, and they had something small. I'm like, this is brilliant. And last time I spoke with him, they had a good idea. I said, your idea is good. I like it. You can build this brick by brick. It's very good. And yesterday I just told him over coffee, I said, two things. First of all, I have a guy I need to connect you with because his tool, if you guys meet, can combine with your tool. You're solving a big problem in your tool. Match made in heaven. Secondly, you just became sexy. From this pivot, you are so investable.
Yes, 100%.
And last time he had a good company, great company, and he already had partners, everything. I'm like, this is going great for you. But I wasn't dingling, right?
Yeah.
I could help him, get investment, whatever. Now it's like, it would be the easiest, if he wants me to help him, it's the easiest job ever.
Yeah.
And it's something I'm excited about, right?
Yeah.
I even told him, if you do that, if you get investment, you can pay me by hiring me. I will come on board like a senior exec. That's how good the product was, right?
Yeah.
And it's really, I get that reaction.
Yeah.
And that is, but it's all subjective.
It is, of course.
And you mentioned it earlier. An advisor is still your advisor. Don't have ego on certain things, but on your project, you should have some ego. One of my best friends in Norway, he was an expert in whenever he would build a small project, done very well for himself over life, he would call me, he would call others for coffees. He would run the idea by them. He would speak to 50 people before he launched. Doesn't mean he takes your advice. He might do something completely different about the project, but he got all the input from possible customers, partners, investors, people who's been in that business before he started. And it's so smart. Today, you could do that much faster with AI.
Of course.
And that's where I mean the research, right? A good example is in our digital bank that I helped, Yap, that I helped start here in Dubai 8 years ago. When we wanted to research a country, because we were in so many countries, I need to get a guy. Either I need to hire an agency to do it. It's so expensive. Or I need some intern associate, something to sit and check that market, do the research, build the market research for that country. He will probably not get it 100% right after validate it. Now, when someone calls, there's a lead. There's a lead in Congo. I have a prompt. I put it into two models on AI. It spits out 90% information I need. So I already know, is this a go-to-market or no?
Yeah.
It takes me 2 minutes. It used to take weeks and work and people, right?
Yeah,
so
true.
there is no excuse anymore not to have done it. But you have to work on your prompting skills. You have to work on your research skills. For me, that wasn't too hard because I was always an analytical and research type of mind, but like deep dive into topics. So for me, I kind of know how to prompt AI, and I know how to read the information, which probably gave me an advantage. But it makes me it makes me 4,000% faster, right? I can do something in 5 minutes that would take me 4 hours. It's amazing. So there's no excuse. If someone didn't bother to do the research, they just didn't bother. I know it's hard, but the beautiful thing with AI, you can even inject in it, you can say, listen, I'm thinking about building this specific podcast business. I don't know what to even ask you. If I have no experience, I know nothing about the market, please write me a plan ask me all the questions you need to ask me to come up with something. It will come up with so many questions. Now you will learn what you need to look for.
Absolutely. Right? And actually, it's so funny you mentioned that because I did that. So a few months ago, I sat down and I'm like, okay, I need to like refine some things. You know, I have some questions, whatever. But I'm like, I told it kind of like what you said, prompted it. It knows my business obviously because like everything is built around that and in the core of like my AI. But I asked it and it gave me, I swear, I think I sat for like maybe 2-3 hours. It asked me, Peter, every question under like the sun. And then by the end, you're like, okay, the answer became so clear. I work with these companies at this valuation. These are the types of people they have, and it just simplified things and gave me a lot more clarity of direction. That's when my B2B thing became like, although the majority of my clients were B2B, that's when it kind of got solidified. And on the point we were mentioning earlier about, value and so on, I even made, because I do get requests sometimes for support, but obviously I can't give you what I charge a B2B for a lower price. That's, because it's the same amount of time. So I created a different package to go for startups. But even with that for startups, even with a much smaller package, which is just like a masterclass, even that is, that is too high. So it's just, again, refining and understanding that, okay, this is not my market, and, this is. And to your point, you were talking about earlier how the use cases you gave are the different examples, and how your friend, for example, would go and speak to 50 people before he even launched anything. What I've also learned is not all feedback is equal.
Absolutely not.
Like if I could build something, I could send it to 100 people, but if those 100 people are useless or have no relevancy to the industry I'm trying to go into, it doesn't work. One of my friends, he built a food brand once upon a time, and he's like, they did a food tasting, and he brought initially all his friends, and the feedback wasn't great, and he didn't like it, so he thought, oh, maybe we're not doing right. And then he's like, I realized, but none of these guys go to the gym, none of them are in fitness, and it was like a healthy food brand. But then we brought trainers and people like that, and that's where you got genuine valuable feedback. So, and I think that's a important thing for people to remember. It's not just about getting feedback, it's about getting feedback from the right people.
So in that use case, who's to blame?
The founder, exactly. Of course, 100%, 100%.
But sometimes the ego creeps in. They were not smart. They were stupid. They didn't understand.
Yeah.
No, you failed.
Yeah. And that's also something that's, I think, tough to accept sometimes for founders, The ego is a very sneaky thing. I've seen it put me up. I've seen it, put me down. And it's so hard to keep that in track. But also you have to, as a founder, I do agree that in this use case, it is the founder's fault. But as a founder also, you kind of have to put people in their place sometimes, because people ask you questions and have opinion about industries. I'm like, with all due respect, you have no idea about
the
any
super
of this.
old saying, right? What's the free advice worth?
There's no such thing as a free lunch?
It's what you paid for it. If the advice is free, it's worth what you paid for it.
That's new. I haven't heard that.
Okay. No, it's we've been saying it in my business for 30 years.
Okay.
It doesn't mean you don't want to hear it, but a lot of people, they just want to have an opinion. And they have zero relevance to your business. They have no knowledge. They're just spitting on their idea and like, this is nonsense. If you go to on some barbecue went with your family, and you meet a guy who's married to a cousin, and he comes from a very traditional food packing business. Khaled, what do you do? I do podcast and I help him. Nonsense. That's not a business. No matter what you tell him, you cannot convince him.
Of course.
You can bark up the tree, but it doesn't.
It's
a complete
waste of energy. Right? Yeah.
He will tell you, okay, if you don't do this, this is what you should do. You should do A, B, C. You know he doesn't know. Is he your target audience? Is he a potential partner? There's 8 billion people in the world. I don't know how many businesses there are. You don't have time to please them all, right? And this is the same saying as people have when it comes to who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, of course.
It's a harsh reality if you want to be a founder. I do this in job interviews for startups. When I interview someone, I don't have a traditional way of interviewing. And one of my most important questions is, do you understand what a startup is? Have you ever worked in one? And then I explain to them that it's not a job, it's a lifestyle if you come into a startup. And I want people who understand that it's a lifestyle and they're willing to make it a lifestyle. It needs to be for their own choosing.
Yes, of course.
Right? So my best hires are always the guys who comes in. Let's say we had a job interview, and you tell me, and for some reason I was running a very successful, larger influencer podcasting agency or something, and you came and you say, Peter, I really want this job. I will work day and night. I will bleed out my fingers. And I want to work for you to 2-3 years to learn as much as I can. And I want to go and start my own business in the same space. I would hire you on the spot.
Really?
Yes, because now our interests are aligned.
Interesting. Okay.
You will give me much more than the employee who just comes on board. Cool, it's a job, it's my space, right? You will give me so much more. And afterwards, if we live on a good footing, we'll probably become partners down the road or support each other or something, right? It's a win-win. And I know you will work because you want to learn the maximum and give the maximum to that company, right? So there's all these metrics and things that goes into your journey and your story, and there's so many questions.
I
right?
know we could say this is an endless conversation,
It's
right?
an endless
Yeah,
conversation.
of course.
So,
Yeah.
so how I typically treat the client, which is very time consuming, is I embed myself, ask 1,000 questions. I would talk to their team, I would understand their market, I very often get brought into companies just like in that midlife crisis.
Okay.
They have a problem.
Yeah.
And if the investor who brought me in, maybe he's like, Peter, go to this company for a month. You have carte blanche. There's a founder, but he trusts the investors. Like, Peter will be there with you guys for a month.
Yeah.
I will talk to the founder, but what I will spend more time doing is talk to the team. I will learn everything about everybody. The unfortunate thing with that is I know for a fact when I come in, typically I have to let part of the team go. I can't let them know that up front, but you have to figure out what to do with the business, right?
Yes.
And in that journey, you figure out, my job is to come in and help the founder to rectify mistakes so they don't keep him down, clarify get all the smoke out of the way so he can refocus on what he's supposed to really be doing, right? Because you get dragged down. You mentioned it earlier. Solopreneur, great. You know you're struggling with the timing and you have to do your accounting and your finance and all this nonsense, right? Hiring a team, you think all that other thing takes time? Running a team, that takes time.
I know.
And it's very hard.
Yeah.
And most young founders, they do, not even young, any age founders, they do the same mistakes. So this is interesting when I have the experience because there's a list of mistakes and they're always the same. And the only reason for it is you've never done it before, right? You haven't done it.
True.
Right? They will look at not what the outcome of the person is. First, what can I afford? And then if they get a guy who's clearly much better than them, they won't hire him. They should do exactly the opposite, right? You can't afford to hire all the big positions, but your job is to make sure that every single person that comes into the company, the job they should handle, they need to be 10 times better at that job than you are. And you have to let them.
Also a big problem that you hear a lot with leaders. You know,
yes.
It's
it boils down to what we talked about, people and group around you. If I only hang out with my friends who want to sit on the couch and watch football the entire weekend and just nag about work and weather and the game, if I want to be a founder, these are not the people I should surround myself with.
Yeah.
I need to surround myself with people who has already gone the path and they're at a higher level than me, right?
Yeah.
By doing that, I elevate myself.
Yeah.
But I need to park my ego.
Of course.
I need to be willing to listen to what they have to tell me and not come into the room and think I'm better than them, right?
Yeah.
Because they have done it, they're better than me. But those are the people you should be around. And it's hard. That's the lifestyle choice. Do I want to spend the weekend with my good buddies? Or do I want to spend growing my business? If you are real about being a founder, you should grow your business.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as work-life balance, being a proper founder. There's no such thing. Everyone who tells you that, they're lying to you. It doesn't mean you can't figure out over time how to balance it better. If you're looking for work-life balance, don't do a startup. Easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Find a nice, comfortable job that you're really good at, that takes care of you. It gives you the promotion you should have, and it gives you enough days off and work from home. And that's it. Do that. Now you have work-life balance because you care more about the balance. If you are into growing a startup, you need to live it and you need to bleed it and you need to surround yourself with people who thinks the same. You need to hire the people who thinks and feels the same. And if you watch a lot of the successful people in the creator space who run big companies, like Stephen Bartlett, for example, they all talk about most of their job now as a CEO is not, they have the vision and then it's hiring.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
They don't work anymore. They hire. And they spend all their time hiring the best people, right?
Yeah. On your point, Peter, about, it's so funny, about the work-life balance. I once had someone on the podcast who's like, Khaled, I was working at a corporate job and then I went to launch my own business because I wanted, more free time and a better work-life balance. It's like I went from no freedom to even less freedom, when I started my business. And it's such although you have freedom of time, everything, comes at a cost, because how are you going to use that time? What's the most effective way, and so on. And like you said, you need to balance, because a lot of the times you hear from founders, they go through burnout and all these kind of mental health issues, which is a real significant thing. But I want to round off our conversation, Peter, today with just 3 more questions for you. I wanted to touch on the podcast, of course. So the podcast is called Behind the Hustle, correct?
Yes.
So I'd love to hear from you. Tell us all, what is the podcast about? And I'm curious, you've done, I don't know how many episodes you've done, but in the beginning of your podcasting career, what have you, because it's interesting with you because your job is speaking to founders all the time and helping them, right? So what have you learned doing it in a podcast format now that you never learned before? Like, what has that experience taught you?
So the podcasting is one thing, and what I learned from the guests is another thing, right? So I chose the podcasting because I believe in this space today. If you want to do anything in business, there's no better way to build your business than to doing a personal brand.
100%.
I was always behind the scenes. I was always private about it. I was the guy you couldn't find on the internet for 20 years, right? On purpose, until I knew the time was right. Now the time is right. Because you want people to have a connection with you before they do business with you.
Yes.
And this is the best way. I'm a guy, I got advice by people. Peter, you talk a lot. So long form content suits you, right? And then I chose a topic I really care about. There's nothing I love more than talking to a founder about their journey and their stories. And I love talking about the real pain, the real challenge of being a startup guy, right? So that's why I call it Behind the Hustle. I love talking to founders they can be first-time founder, serial founder, but it needs to be someone who's entrepreneurial. They started something and they went through the struggle. I like to hear their personal stories, what made them a founder, and then their key learnings, right? Because we can all learn from each other.
Absolutely.
Right? And pretty much every single episode I record, so I recorded like 15. I have 9 or 10 live. Editing is eating me a bit, so it's easy to fall behind. And every single episode, I learn something new because I love talking to people about their space, and then I just learn something. And one of my key things in life, I told myself, best advice I ever got, learn something new every day. And the podcast provides that for me, right? I'm talking about the space I care about. I'm talking about their journeys. I learn so much about their industries, about their passions, their challenges. And by listening to those conversations, I'm hoping that other founders can also, that's a good one. And there is nothing better for a founder. You talked about burnout, mental fatigue, all these things, right? Imposter syndromes, ego. There's nothing better for a founder who's doing it himself. And what he sees on social is Lamborghinis and success and yachts and billionaires. And it's not true. Most of it is fake, unfortunately.
It is.
And those few who succeeds, you're talking about 1 in 500 million people succeeds, right? The real stories are hard. When you hear the other guy who actually might have succeeded by now, but you hear the truth of
what he went to get there.
You're like, okay, it's okay. It's okay for me to feel like this. I can learn something. And I think in the times we live in now, I think that's why I like the podcast. I like to listen to podcasts. I like to create the podcast. Is you don't need to redo the mistakes that everybody else did. You will have mistakes on your vision and your product to market fit and certain things, but 90% of business has been done. It's reached a level where you don't need to innovate. You can learn that by listening to others. Like a stupid example is over the years, every single solopreneur I've spoken to, they would be like, I deal with clients, they pay me by package or per hour or whatever. I'm going to do my own accounting because accounting is expensive. And I'm like, what is expensive? Yes. The accountant, he wants like $300 a month. Oof, it's too much. I'm going to do it myself at night. You're not an accountant. You're not a trained accountant. So I would ask them, so how much do you charge per hour for a customer? Like it's charged at $150. So I'm like, you would prefer to sit every night of the week for 2-3 hours a week doing something you don't know. You will get it wrong. You'll need to call an expert or you get it wrong with taxes or something at some point, instead of selling 2 more hours a month to a client. Your job with accounting is just to understand what the numbers are telling you.
Yeah.
You don't need to do the accounting. Your job is to sell your product. And by selling your product, you reach new customers. You grow more revenue. And it's just this It's so cash flow kills companies.
Oh my God, yeah.
But then now you focus on saving on the wrong things, right? You can't save on the wrong things.
Great point.
Yeah.
Very, very good point.
So I'm one of those. I'm terrible with my personal money, but to come to my company money, you can't even get a pen out of me.
Yeah.
But then you ask me you walk in, and we had an interesting, someone running a marketing department in the digital bank that I helped build. One day, the manager of marketing came in and she was super angry. Why did you give the guy, she was traveling for a few weeks. And the guy came in with a use case. He said, listen, now we're producing TikTok. And if we can buy this new iPhone for the company, it will elevate the content. And we don't have one. And my advisor told. Took me 2 seconds to decide. Done. Order it. We'll have it tomorrow. I didn't need to go to marketing manager for approval. She was angry at, why did you give him that reward? It's not a reward. The ROI of my business is amazing. What are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And she wanted to save, use that budget somewhere else, and she wanted him to earn it personally. It's not a personal earn. It's a business tool, right? So now it's about saving on the wrong things. And people, they save on the wrong things and they don't want to spend on the right things. I'm the easiest to get big money out of, but I'm the hardest to get small money out of.
Yeah.
But if you have a good use case, right?
Of course. And I think that is such an important point. When you said that, I was just reflecting on myself and like my journey and what I do. I think one of my biggest roadblocks has been because I can do everything and I'm to a certain level. There are people that are better, but to get them for this need, like my ROI of that extra maybe 10% improvement doesn't make sense. But for example, with my editing, so I do all my editing, of course, but for the intros, I don't have the technical ability to make it look great. I can build the whole story. I build the whole story and what clips are going to go where, but the animation and that, I don't do that. I could learn it, but I'd rather not. So I have a designer who just does like that for me, right? And I could probably delegate more, but I don't have that trust yet. And I think that's something that, founders experience too. But the point you made about saving on the right thing, spending on the right things and saving on the wrong things, man, is so true. It's crazy how you will. This can take our conversation a completely different way. We'll have that over.
Be a new episode, 2 more hours.
Yeah, I know, exactly. But we'll have that conversation over coffee because it's more about finance and value and whatever. Yeah. Peter, for my last 2 questions, these are questions I ask all my guests. So looking back at your life, either personally or professionally, when I ask you the question, what are you most proud of for yourself? What would you say?
Most proud of for myself is it's very personal. It's the person I ended up with in my life, and then it's funny. It's like an imposter syndrome. I'm like, how did I get so lucky? Right? So that's my proudest moment. I've done a lot of good things in business, done a lot of key learnings, but in the end, it's the personal part that is the most proud. I'm trying to be better at. I used to be one of those guys who just go to the office at 8, stay until midnight, grind 24/7. I don't do that anymore. I still believe in it, but now I started putting more personal goals during a year.
Sure.
That helps me. By doing those personal goals, it actually improves my business.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
So personal achievement. I'm still, business-wise, I'm proud that we opened the first standalone digital bank in the UAE faster and at less than 5% budget than anyone else. And we were first to market and we had the largest growth. That's an achievement, right? I'm proud of the return we brought investors. But these are just ongoing.
Yeah.
I don't really measure in that.
Yeah.
I put it on my LinkedIn and so on because it's an important tool for people to see, okay, you have done it.
Of course.
We understand you've done it. But I am equally proud of helping a founder secure his first $50,000 to do his MVP to someone raising $15 million to do a certain round of something. And a $15 million round, you're never alone. Now there is McKinsey involved. There is this company. They brought these advisors. There's a lot of moving elements. So I take pride in having helped a founder who succeeds. On this, for some reason, I have the same as everyone else. I get driven by ego, I get driven by imposter syndrome and so on. But when it comes to seeing a founder who succeeded what he set out to do, and I helped him a little bit on the journey, I have zero ego. Yeah. I am so proud, I'm so happy. And the guy comes back with God forbid, but he comes back with his Lamborghini or whatever, because that's what he wanted.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, good for you, bro. I'm like, good for you. And so many people that get jealous about that. You should celebrate other people's wins. Don't be negative about it. I think for me, that's a very personal, important thing to me. I try to, when someone succeeds, celebrate. I don't need to like the person, but I'm like, good for them. They did well for themselves. You can only measure against yourself. If you measure others, you will always fail. You can always find someone who's bigger than you. 100%. I started a podcast, me and you. Should we measure to Stephen Bartlett or Joe Rogan?
No.
Good luck.
Yeah, true.
Let's just go home.
Yeah, that's the target, but yeah.
So, no, I think that,
But I understand that, Peter. And, when I ask that question, everyone has a different answer. One very common one always comes back to family, family, kids, whatever. So I understand how, and being married myself, I know how important that decision is, and how fortunate even I consider myself too, with the wifey. She'll be happy now she's hearing this.
I did it just for the credit.
Yeah, for both, double credit. And for my last question, Peter, what is the message you'd like everyone to take home with them today?
I think if you are going to do a startup and you know in yourself that this is what you want, just go and do it. There's so much free information out there. Everything is available. There's never been a better time to start a startup. Everyone is worried about the world is shifting. AI will take my job, whatever. It's not a problem. Do something about it. You have to decide what you want in your life and go for it. And the worst thing that can happen is that tomorrow you wake up and you have to start again. Life is too short not to try.
I think, man, that's I resonate with that, so much, and so much from our conversation today I took away of, your passion to learn, which is something that I love too. That's why I started my podcast, to sit with amazing people like you, and just like you're experiencing right now, you get to sit down and learn. And, I always also, I fully support what you said, and I agree with it 100%. I also want, I like to be fair to people that context is everything. Maybe you can't afford to do that. You have families, you have responsibilities. So, however, there's a lot of reasons to not, right? But I think now, to your point, with the technology that we have, everyone talks about how AI is changing the space. I agree. Okay, use it. You can use that to create, and now you could probably do it in the most time effective and efficient way, because it will do so much, for you. So I fully agree with you, man.
Yeah.
Peter, thank you so much, man, for coming on the show today. This was a fucking fantastic conversation. Since we first met, I always like sitting down with people, not only that, have an amazing experience that myself and the audience can learn from, but that I have great chemistry with, it just makes the whole experience much more enjoyable. Congratulations on everything you've accomplished. I'm so excited to hear what's going to come up for you, in the next phase as the business grows. And yeah, man, if anyone wants to reach out with you, work with you, check out the podcast, where can we get in touch?
Just any social media, Peter Thomsen X. I have the same handle everywhere. So just search that up. You will find me everywhere.
Awesome. I will make sure to put that in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
Peter,
thanks for having me. It's been a bliss. Really good conversation. I enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you so much, man.
And I'm going to watch your journey when you build the next podcast empire.
We're trying. Hopefully maybe we can build it together.
Maybe.
My man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you, man.
I really appreciate it. Guys, everyone listening, thank you so much. Please make sure to like, follow, share, and subscribe to the podcast. I hope it helps pod on all channels. And as always, guys, hope it helps. Peace. Yeah.
Good outro. Good outro.
And that's another episode in the bag, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, podcasting is like this massive jigsaw puzzle, and my job is to help you find that missing piece. So if you're someone who's looking to launch your own podcast or take their podcast to the next level, you can book a call today and let's get started. TikTok.